This is the second week of our series, Family Portraits, the traditional family we read about in the Bible of one man and one woman married for life and their children is under attack in our society today. However, history shows that when the family unit collapses, the culture around it is soon to follow. Although the Christian family can be a beautiful illustration of the relationship between Jesus and the church, us, it can also be a source of major pain and suffering, which we know many of you have experienced in your family. As we said last week, if you do come from a broken family, as you see our logo for this series is a broken heart. If you come from a broken family and you've experienced a lot of pain in your family, I want you to know that I'm sorry, and it's not your fault. It's not your fault. Last week we discussed what a godly family looks like. If you remember, it's one man, one woman married for life. And remember, what did we say about, in God's sight, the value between men and women? They are what? They are what, but what?
Equal but different.
Equal but different. Do you guys remember this from last week? If you were here last week? Equal but different. Different roles. Who remembers what the role of a husband is? Does anybody remember? To be the spiritual leader and to do what with his wife? Not just lead her, but love her. Be willing to sacrifice himself for her. That's right. For a wife, what's the godly role of a wife?
Make a man a sandwich.
What is it? Submit and respect your husband. That's right. Submit and respect your husband. That's right. Not in a forceful way where the husband is abusing the wife, but it's a willful choice by the woman to submit. She's willingly submitting as we submit to Jesus. And what's the children's role? Your role as teenagers. What's your role? Obey. Honor. And like I said last week, we're going to talk more about that today. So today's message is titled Honoring Your Parents. Write that down. Very appropriate. After all, it is Mother's Day. Hopefully you've done something nice for your mothers. All right. You got that written down? Honoring your parents. A lot of our message today is from the website. What websites we use a lot of time for research? GotQuestions.org? Good. You're learning. Anybody ever use that for a question about God? Has anyone ever used it yet? Yeah, awesome. Awesome, cool. It's a great website. All right, we're going to bring Kyle, our intern, up on stage. Coming up here, intern Kyle. Let's give Kyle a round of applause. Yes. All right, so intern Kyle, even though most of the things he does is behind the scenes, he preaches once a month or so. He does a lot of stuff, and I know for his small group guys, raise your hand if you're in Kyle's small group, right? Yeah. We love this guy. I know he seems like a cool guy, and he's only...
Seem like a cool guy, what?
Well, to them, you know. You're only a few years older than they are, and so, all right?
I like Paul.
You're only a few years older than some of your small group guys, so they can kind of think sometimes that maybe you're their friend. And I know you've said you're careful to make sure you're distinguishing between friend and that you're a leader, and you're not primarily a friend, you're a leader. And so we need to remember, even though he's a cool guy, he seems chill, and he's only a few years older than most of you, we need to remember that we need to respect and honor Kyle, because he's on staff here at Gold Creek with all the privileges. He's even got an actual Gold Creek email. There's only 28 people on staff at Gold Creek, and he's one of them. Yeah, he's an official staff member. And so you guys need to respect and honor him in the position that he holds as a leader. When he talks, when he preaches, he's representing me. He's representing also Pastor Dan. He represents our church. And so we need to remember to honor and respect intern Kyle's position. Even though he's a fun guy and he's not too much older than you guys, we need to remember we need to honor his position and respect him. Cool? All right, that's all I got to say. Thank you, intern Kyle. Give him a clap, round of applause. Thank you. All right. So that is honoring. So we just honored Kyle, intern Kyle, okay? That's what honoring is all about. All right. Our first passage today is, I'm off the track. Now I'm on the track. Is Exodus 20:12. Exodus 20:12. You might remember this if you were here for our 10 Commandments series back in January. Actually, intern Kyle talked about this. Honor your father and mother. Then you will live a long, full life in the land the Lord your God is giving you. This leads us to our first point today. Number one, honor your parents. God values honoring parents so much that he included it in the 10 Commandments. Exodus 20:12, that's what we just read. That's from the 10 Commandments. It's so important that God put it in his top 10. That's how important it is. And it's a lifelong command to us. We need to honor our parents their entire lives till they die. Now, honoring someone, as we just learned with Kyle, is being respectful in word and action. That's what I was telling you guys. He's your intern. So it's not just enough for us to bring him on Sunday and say that we respect your position, Kyle, as a staff member here at Little Creek. No, we actually need to practice. I want you guys to be respectful to intern Kyle. Honoring someone is being respectful in word and action. So it's not just enough for you to say, hey, I respect Kyle, and he's on staff, I respect that. But then when he tells you to stop texting on your cell phone in a couple minutes, to go, I don't even listen to you. You're only 6 years older than me. No. Does that really accomplish anything? We all just admitted that he's on staff. We need to respect him. You might have said, yeah, I respect Kyle. But if just in 10 minutes you disrespected him by not listening to him, are you really honoring him? No. You need to do it in word and deed, word and action. You see how does that make sense? Honoring someone is being respectful in word and action, and having an inward attitude of esteem for their position. That's what we were doing with Kyle. I was trying to give you guys some esteem. Esteem means to have respect for it. You have, I hold it high. Esteem his position. He's only one of only 28 people who's actually on Gold Creek's staff. He's an official staff member. So we were esteeming his position. We're esteeming his position. So that's what honoring is. Being respectful in word and action, having an inward attitude of esteem for their position. Now this is important that you catch this. Actually, write this down. You don't have to always agree with someone or believe that they deserve it to honor them. I'll give you an illustration for this. A lot of your parents don't like our president. Don't agree with him. Don't like him. You probably have heard them say some negative things about our president. All right? He's not a very popular guy. But you can still respect the President of the United States because you focus on his position. You esteem his position. Just like you esteem Kyle's position. Even if you don't agree with everything Kyle says, you need to respect his position as a staff member here at Gold Creek who represents the church. Well, the same is true for our president. You respect the office. He's the president. You don't have to agree with all of his policies or everything he says, but you can still respect his office, his position as the President of the United States. Okay? You don't have to always agree with them or believe that they even deserve it. To honor them. You can still honor them. You can still honor the President without agreeing with everything he says. How does this relate to you guys? Even if you have parents who are dishonorable, and I'm sure most of you have great parents, but there's some students in J.High, there's probably some students in a room with this many students. There's probably some of you who have parents who are alcoholics. You have parents who drink around you. That's obviously inappropriate. It's not good when adults are drinking around children. That's not an honorable thing for an adult to do around a child. Some of you have abusive parents who abuse you, either physically or emotionally or verbally. It's not appropriate. That's not honorable. They don't deserve to be honored. I would agree with you. Some of you do have parents that don't deserve to be honored. No discriminate. Remember, it's not your fault. I'm sorry that you're having to deal with a family unit like that. But, just as with the president, you don't have to agree with everything he says, but you still need to respect him because of his position. So even if you have parents who are dishonorable, and some of you do, sadly, God still wants you to honor them in everything you do, say, and think. You hear what I'm saying? I know some of you have dishonorable parents, but it doesn't change the commandment from God. Exodus 20, the 10 Commandments, God didn't say in the 10 Commandments to only honor your parents if you have perfect parents. Guess what? No one has perfect parents. No. God said, children, honor your parents. Period. Even if you have parents who are dishonorable, God still says he wants you to honor them. Respect their rank. Just as we respect the president, might not agree with everything he says, we still respect his office. Respect your parents' rank. They're my parents. I know they mess up. I know they're not perfect. These are still the parents that God gave me. See that? All right. Next passage, Ephesians 6, 1 through 3. I read this last week. A little bit of review. Children, obey your parents. Who's children? All right, you guys. I'm a teenager. I'm not a child. I am still technically still a child. Still, you move out of your parents' house. You're still a child. Children, obey your parents because you belong to the Lord, for this is the right thing to do. Pause right there. You know what this is? This is God speaking directly to you right now. He's speaking to you as a child. He's not speaking to me. I'm not a child anymore. He's speaking to you. This is God speaking directly to you. Children, obey your parents because you belong to the Lord, for this is the right thing to do. Honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with a promise. If you honor your father and mother, things will go well for you. You will have a long life on the earth. What does that sound like, that verse? What does that sound like? Sounds like what we just read, right? Before this? What was the passage before this? Exodus, right? Sounds just like what is the Apostle Paul doing here thousands of years after Moses wrote Exodus? What's Paul saying? He's going back thousands of years to what Moses said in the Ten Commandments, what God wrote in the Ten Commandments. He's tying it together. Guess what he's saying? Hey, that commandment that was given thousands of years ago to the people of Israel in the desert by Mount Sinai, guess what? That still applies to Christians today, thousands of years later. It still applies to us. The Ten Commandments still applies to you as children. Children, obey your parents because you belong to the Lord, if this is the right thing to do. Raise your hand if you know of a disrespectful teenager. Somebody you know at school. Oh man, so disrespectful. I am such a perfect child compared to that scene. Do you want to know what God commanded the people of Israel to do after the Ten Commandments were written to disrespectful children, teenagers? You want to know what God... Yeah, that's correct. In the desert, God commanded, this was thousands of years ago, before the New Testament, before Jesus came, God's command to disrespectful teenagers, teenagers who disrespect their parents, was to take them outside the community and stone them. Not to do drugs together. To throw rocks at them until they die. Pretty serious, yeah? Good thing we're not living under that old covenant in the Old Testament, right? There'd be some people who wouldn't be here today. Because I think there's some people that are probably pretty disrespectful to their parents in this room. Right? Yeah, good thing we live under the new covenant of Jesus. We live under an age of grace. Amen. Yes, but we don't get what we deserve. But that's how serious disrespect is to God. He used to have his people kill, execute disrespectful teenagers. Yeah, pretty serious. That's why we're seeing this repeated. Old Testament, and now again in Ephesians 6:1. Your role from God, again, this isn't directly to me. Ephesians 6:1 wasn't written to me. I'm not a child anymore. It was written to you, because you're still children. Obey your parents, because you belong to the Lord, for this is the right thing to do. So that leads us to our second point. Obey your parents. Number 2, write down. As a child, your role is to honor, remember honor is different, and obey your parents. Now, I was talking to one of my guys during D groups at the 9 o'clock service, and he said he's doing really great. You'll see the questions at the end during D groups. He says he's doing great at honoring his parents. And I asked him, how are you doing at obeying? Oh, not so great. I go, hang on a second. Is it really possible to honor your parents if you don't obey them? What do you think? I don't think so. Right. Honor and obedience go together. They're intrinsically linked. Yes. As a child, your role is to honor and obey your parents. Unlike honor, which is, how long does honor last? How long do you need to honor your parents? Life. Lifetime command, until they die, so your parents die. Unlike honor, this obedience is not a lifelong command. It's only a command while you live with your parents. Okay? Only for right now. Until you're 18 or 19, you move out. Now, I want to just make sure you guys understand this. I have a really close relationship with my mom. I just talked to her last night. I talk to her every day. She's probably my closest advisor. I talk to her a lot. I'll admit it, right in front of you guys. I'm a mama's boy. Self-described mama's boy. Any other mama's boys in here? You proud of it? Absolutely. Absolutely. Me and my freshman roommate in college would tell guys, other guys, like, yeah, we're mama's boys. You got a problem with that? You got a problem with me being a mama's boy? I'll talk to you afterwards outside. Yeah, I'm a mama's boy. You betcha I love my mom. I'll say that right in front of her. I'm ashamed to say that. I'm very proud to say that. I love my mom. She's an awesome woman of God. I still talk to my mom. Now I'm 33. I'm a man. I live 2,000 miles away from my mom. But I still talk with her a lot. And I'm obviously focusing on honoring her till she dies. The rest of her life I'm going to honor her. But part of honoring her is still listening to her when she tells me things. It's not really obeying her, that kind of a thing anymore as an adult now. But I still listen to her. And I've kind of learned, when I was younger, I used to think my mom was always wrong and I was right. Well, man, now as an adult looking back, I've kind of looked back. My mom's got about a 90% lifetime average of being right. I mean, I don't know if any of your parents, you think your parents, when you're adults, you'll probably kind of realize about their parents. My mom really is about right about, when she gives me advice and tells me to do something, when I look back, she's about right. My lifetime average has been about 90% of the time she's been right. She's usually right. So part of my way of honoring my mom, even though I'm an adult and I live 2,000 miles away from her, is I still listen to when she tells me to do something. It's not obedience, you probably wouldn't call it that. When she gives me advice, when she tells me things to do, 90% of the time, I'll still listen to her. And that's my way to honor her. So it's not just like, I never got to listen to my mom again, ever again, blah, 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 once I move out of the house. Part of honoring might be still kind of obedience, kind of listening to her. And we made the funny illustration last week of, when you guys are 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road, when you have kids of your own, you have a house of your own, and your mom comes in, she's got her cane or her walker, and who was here last week? What did we say? What did she say? What did she say to you? You and your wife are going to go clean your room right now! Right now, go clean your room right now. Mom, this is my house. You can't order my house. Right. So it's not that. But part of honoring your parents is still listening to them. Even once you're an adult, it's still listening to them. Okay? So back to obedience. If your parents tell you to do something and you do not obey immediately as a teenager, it is sin that needs to be repented from, turned away from, and confessed. Otherwise, you're cut off from God. You guys hear that? Well, I listen to my parents, she tells me to do the dishes or clean my room, I'll do it eventually. No. Don't deceive yourself. Unless you obey immediately, it is sin. It is disobedience. Yeah. And you need to confess that sin. This commandment to obey your parents is the only command in Scripture that promises a long life as a reward for following you. If you honor and obey your parents, God promises you to bless you and promises you a long life. So, if you do obey and honor your parents in all things, at all times, God has promised, it will happen, 100% guaranteed, to bless you. And that's not only are you going to live longer, but to bless you means that He's gonna make sure that you have less pain and conflict in your life. You're going to have a more joyful life if you honor and obey your parents. God has promised to bless you for that. Not only will you not be stoned, but you'll be blessed if you do honor and obey your parents in all things. And this isn't that hard of a promise to imagine that it actually happens. Raise your hand if your parents have told you not to drink alcohol. Don't drink. Don't go to any parties. Don't hang out with anyone that drinks. Don't ever get in a car with any teenagers that are drinking. Right? Well, guess what? If you listen to your parents and you don't drink and you don't hang out with those that do, you're not going to get in a car of a teenager who's been drinking, who's drunk, who drives you at 60 miles an hour into a guardrail and kills you. You're going to live longer. Yeah. Raise your hand if your parents told you never to do drugs. Don't ever touch drugs. Don't hang out with kids who do drugs. Same thing. If you obey your parents and never touch drugs and don't go around anyone that does do drugs, you're never going to try marijuana, you're never going to try heroin and become one of the 90% of kids who try heroin and get addicted to it for life. You're not going to start stealing from your parents, stealing from your friends so you can support your drug habit. You're not going to eventually go to jail because you're a thief. And you're going to be in jail, and then you're going to start selling drugs, and then you're going to go to jail for 25 years. You're not going to do that if you obey your parents. Okay? Again, it's not just a longer life. You're going to have less pain and conflict. I would say going to jail is going to be a lot of pain and conflict. Becoming a drug addict for the rest of your life, that's going to be a lot of pain and conflict. If you obey your parents, it's not going to happen. So we can see how this promise is very relevant. Not that hard to see that. We'll have a better, longer life if we obey our parents. God's going to bless us. And our last passage today is Luke 2:51. Then he returned to Nazareth. Now this is Jesus here. This is a story about Jesus. Then he returned to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. Who do you think them is? His parents. Who are his parents? Mary and Joseph. And his mother stored all these things in her heart. So I'll tell you the context of this passage. So right before this, Jesus is about 12 years old. Anybody here 12 years old? Is anybody still 12? You still have a couple 12-year-olds. Okay? So he's your age, younger than most of you. Jesus went, the Bible tells us, to Jerusalem with his parents. Now, we don't have a lot about Jesus' childhood. This is one of the few times that comes between his birth in Bethlehem and the first Christmas and his ministry as an adult. This is one of the first times. He's 12 years old. He goes to Jerusalem, the big major city in Israel, and he gets lost. He gets separated from his parents, and they go on and leave town without him. And they go back, like, where's Jesus? I thought he was with you. I thought he was with you. Isn't he with your cousin? No, he's not with their cousin. Where is he? Oh. They had to go back. Days later, the 12-year-old. Imagine getting left in a major city. What if you got left in downtown Seattle by your parents for a few days? And you guys were freaking out. Well, that's what Jesus had to do. And so they go back to Jerusalem. It took them days to find him. They didn't even find him right away. They had to go back and look around all the city. It took them a few days to find him. And guess where they found him? Anybody know where they found him? Where was he? He was teaching in the temple. So at 12 years old, he's teaching the Jewish leaders, the religious leaders. At 12 years old, he's teaching them. He's God. Yeah, a little bit more knowledgeable than the average 12-year-old, right? And his mom, Mary's like, Jesus, why did you do this to us? We're frantic. We were going to go crazy. Why would you go here? Why weren't you looking for us? He's like, where else do you think I'd be, Mother, but in my Father's house? Remember, I'm God, Father's house. You know, God's house, the temple, it's like the church. You think I'd be here? You'd think they would have looked there for him first, but no, it took them days to go. Maybe he's in the temple. Oh yeah, he's God, isn't he? Oh yeah, let's maybe check that. Yeah. And after that, it says this, and this is right after, Luke 2:51. Then he returned to Nazareth. That was his hometown. He wasn't from Jerusalem. He was from Nazareth. He wasn't from Bethlehem. That's just where he was born. His hometown where he grew up as a child was Nazareth, with them in the north, and was obedient to them. And his mother stored all these things in her heart. So what do we see here? Final point. Jesus obeyed his parents. Jesus obeyed his parents. Write that down, number 3. Even Jesus, as 100% God, submitted himself to both his earthly parents, Mary and Joseph. And at first you're like, well, of course he did. Here's the thing, guys. Jesus, even as a little kid, was still fully God. He was literally God with skin on. 100% God, 100% human. So he was perfect. He knew he was God at 12 years old. His parents were not perfect. His parents were not God. They were normal humans. Do your parents ever make mistakes? Raise your hand if your parents have ever made a mistake. Yeah, no one's got perfect parents. Guess what? Mary and Joseph made mistakes. They were perfect. So Mary and Joseph would say, Jesus, how could you leave all your toys out and your mess outside like that? And Jesus is like, those aren't even my toys that the neighbor kids. I saw him through the wall because I'm God. That's not even mine. Jesus, go pick them up right now. They're not even mine. He does it. He obeys them. You think that Mary and Joseph gave him some bad commands and told him to do the wrong thing sometimes? Yeah. And he's God. So it's like, this isn't the right thing to do. But as little kid Jesus, little teenager Jesus, he obeyed. Even when he knew they were wrong. He still completely submitted himself to these finite, limited humans who were sinful and messed up. And he's perfect. So what does that tell us? That even Jesus submitted himself completely to his earthly parents and honored and obeyed them in all things at all times. As Jesus followers, we should follow his example. You got no excuse. No excuse. Because I'm sure you think most of the time your parents are wrong and you're right. Well, guess what? Whenever Jesus thought that, he was 100% right. He was right and they were wrong, and he still obeyed and honored them. Didn't give them attitude. Obeyed them immediately. So you guys have no excuse. And like me, you're going to find out when you get older your parents were right about most things. And you were wrong. Jesus obeyed his parents, and we should too. He gives us an example to follow. In closing today, honoring parents. I want you to write down the answer for both of these. Honoring parents requires both action and attitudes. Remember what we said about intern Kyle bringing him on stage? Just bring him up here and honor him and say, hey Kyle, I respect you and honor your position as a staff member here at Gold Creek. It's not enough if you disrespect him and don't listen to him when he tells you to do something 10 minutes later. No, it requires both word and deed, action and attitudes. Are you honoring your parents' unspoken as well as spoken wishes? You guys know what I mean by that? So, how many of you have said something like this? Well, my mom didn't say to do that. She said do that, do this thing, and I did that. She didn't tell me to do that, though. Do you guys know what I'm saying? But you know she meant both. Unspoken request. Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Yeah. If we're honest. Yeah. You guys know what I'm saying? Well, Mom, you didn't say that. Well, you knew what your mom meant, didn't you? Yeah. No. Honoring and obeying your parents is honoring both their spoken and unspoken requests. You know what they want, and you know what they don't want you to do. Don't try to deceive the situation, mix it up by saying, they didn't say that. Well, you didn't say that. No, you knew. You knew. And that's dishonor if you do that. So write your answer to this. Are you honoring your parents in word only, or also with your actions? I respect my mom, really. If you followed you around with the J.High film crew today at home, and tomorrow, and during this week, would your actions line up with what you're saying, that you do honor and respect your parents? Secondly, if you do not have godly parents who are strong Jesus followers, and we know there's some of you in this room who do not have godly parents. I said last week that the vast majority of Christian families in America today are not godly families. We learned that last week, right? The majority of Christian families in America are not godly families. And we know that there's several of you in this room who do not have godly families. You do not have godly parents who are strong Jesus followers. So if you don't have godly parents, honoring them, which you must do according to God, honoring them does not mean you should imitate them. See what I'm saying? If you have, the one exception for not obeying your parents in all things at all times is if they lead you into sin. And we gave an example last week of a student from J.High a few years ago that actually his dad was leading him into sin. And there's students in here, some of your parents have led you into sin before. That is the one exception not to obey your parents in all things at all times, is if they're leading you to do something contrary to God's word. That's the only exception. That's it. Otherwise it's sin. But if you have ungodly parents who are leading you to do something against God's will, you don't really have an option. Yeah, God's not going to make you obey them, but you don't really have an option. God is telling you, you must not obey them if they're telling you to sin. Otherwise, you're sinning. You're still accountable for your own sin. So if you do not have godly parents or strong Jesus followers, honoring them does not mean you should imitate them. If a parent ever instructs you to do something that contradicts God's commands as a Jesus follower, you must obey God rather than your parents. So write this down in closing today. Are you willing to put God before your parents? Being a Jesus follower means you're making him Lord of your life, which means he's number one. That means not just before sports, your friends, but it also means before your family. I know a lot of you have really close relationships with your parents like I do with mine. But you better not be closer to your parents than you are to God. Jesus needs to be number one. Anything the Bible tells us that we put before Jesus becomes an idol. So yes, there's some of you in here who are worshiping your parents. It's idol worship. You need to put God above them. That means if you do have ungodly parents who are leading you away from God and they tell you to do something that's sin, you need to put God first and not listen to your parents and disobey them in that situation. But that's the only exception. Otherwise, well, Pastor, you don't know how mean my parents are. Doesn't matter. I don't see that in the Bible. I don't see that in Exodus and the Ten Commandments. I don't see that in Ephesians that it says, children, obey your parents only if you have really nice parents that are never mean and unfair. It doesn't say that. It says, children, obey